What is up, guys? In today's video we're going to be checking out the LG V35 versus the V40 versus the V50. So if you want to check out all of the videos that I've already done on these phones, just type them in the YouTube search bar with Matthews Tech in it, and it will come up. I've compared these two phones and all of that stuff, drain the batteries on these two. But I want to briefly talk about these phones for some of the new people and just people wanting to know which one that they should maybe get. Now let's go ahead and talk about pricing real quick. So with the V35, you can actually pick a brand new one up for around $250. You can get a renewed version, which is the one I have right here, for around $200. Now the V40, you can get a renewed version for around $200, but the new version is going to cost you around $323. And for the V50, you can pick one up. I picked this one up on eBay. They're selling them for around $300 to around $400. So as far as like the bodies on these phones, as you can see, they look very similar. As you can see, the V40 and V50 are just bigger than the V35, and I really like the color on the V35 because it's not a fingerprint magnet like the V40 and V50 are. They don't offer this silver color, I believe. So that is one thing that I noticed. And as you can see with the hardware, they really kept the same design. You've got the same kind of camera module, fingerprint scanner on the back, the same branding. One of the things you'll notice different with the camera setup is that it's flat design on the V50. So as you can see, completely flat, and we have a little camera bump on the V40 and on the V35. So I really love the flat camera design. It just looks so much better to me. But as you can see, dual camera setup on the V35 and triple camera setups on the V40 and V50. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But same button layout on these phones. Well, it's not the same. Actually, let's talk about that. So on the V40 and V50, you have the power button, and then you have your volume rocker, and then you have your Google Assistant button. So you have a dedicated power button, something that's kind of awkward on the V35. You may like it or may not like it. It really comes down to your personal preference, but this is the power button. So there's no actual power button on here. So if you want to turn the phone on and off, you have to use the fingerprint scanner. So if you might like that way, you might not like that way, but LG moved away from that. So I'm assuming people didn't like it, but it is what it is. And there's no Google Assistant button on the V35 as well. So that is one thing that I kind of miss on the V35, and it is kind of awkward with this, but I kind of prefer just a normal power button. But I really think it's because, you know, every phone does it. So when you see a phone that does not do it, it's kind of awkward. But I don't have an issue with this being a power button. So let's go ahead and keep talking about these specs. So all of these phones have the IP rating. Of course, they're all glass and metal phones, so just premium hardware on all of these phones. So as far as the display, you have a 6-inch display on the V35. You have a 6.4-inch display on both the V40 and V50. So as you can see, just a much bigger display. So I guess if you want a smaller display and you just want an overall a little bit more compact phone, then the V35 would be the way to go. If you want a bigger phone, you would be looking at these two, of course. But as far as resolution and display quality, they're all OLED displays, and also they're all 1440p with the high pixel density. So it's just a beautiful display on all of these guys. As far as I can tell, not a huge difference with just color and overall display quality. You're not going to really notice a big difference besides the notch. So you have a notch on the V40 and V50, no notch on the V35. So I really like the V35's display, the no notch display. So I don't have an issue with you know, these having the notch. But as you can see, like if I hop into a game, and then as you can see, you know, you have that, I guess, more immersive experience on the V35 as opposed to, you know, the notch kind of cutting into the game, which is something that a lot of people might not like. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about software. So the V50 comes out of the box with Android 10, and on the V40 and V35 it comes with Android 9, but these are capable of getting Android 10. The updates are pushing out. I haven't got mine, unfortunately, on the V35 or the V40. Now with Sprint, it's like they're super slow, so I usually just hate getting any Sprint phones because Verizon and AT&T have got it, but this Sprint phone, Sprint hasn't said anything about the update, and AT&T is pushing out the update on this model, but I haven't got mine yet. So I feel you guys pain if you're waiting for the update. So you know, it just takes time. I did get mine on the G7. This is the only one I got the actual update on so far, so I will keep you guys, you know, updated if it hits my device. Now as far as software, I feel like the V50 might get you know, the next version of Android, and I really think the 35 and V40 they might just keep it on Android 10, but you never know, they might update it. But now these are also very fast phones. You have the 855, 6 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage on the V50, V40, 845, 64 gigs of RAM or 64 gigs of storage, and you have 6 gigs of RAM. And on the V35 you have the 845, 6 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of storage. So you get more internal storage on this base model on the V50. Now these are all very fast phones when launching applications, scrolling, stuff like that, but if you want the overall better you know, faster phone, then the V50 is going to be the phone for you. It's got the 855, it's fast, you can play games on high settings on all of these phones really, so like, you know, you're not going to be, no phone's going to be really that much faster than each other. So I've done speed tests and stuff like that, but if you overall just want the insurance of just having the faster phone, especially from a couple years from now, then the V50 is going to be the way to go. But like I said, you can play games, Fortnite, PUBG, Call of Duty Mobile on high settings on all of these phones, so that's very awesome. Now you're not missing any real flagship features on these phones. You got wireless charging on all of these phones, you got NFC on all these phones, you got the quad DAC on all of these phones as well. So if you're really into music listening, then all of these phones are going to be great for that. You have the equalization settings, DTS surround sound on here as well. So these phones are going to be great for audio. So the V50 is the only phone here with the stereo speakers on here. So we'll go ahead and let's see if you can tell the difference here. Now let's check out the audio quality with the speakers, since the V50 does have the stereo speakers, which is just this little, you know, earpiece speaker right here, so it might not make a huge difference. But let's go ahead and see. So we're going to start with the V35. So very loud, good detail, no real issue, and you know, it's your basic single firing speaker. Yeah, so the V40 is definitely louder than the V35. You can actually hear the bass. You can't hear the bass at all on the V35. Yeah, so to me the V40 has the better speaker here because I can still hear the bass and it still maintains the same audio level. So it's not like this is so much louder than the V40, and this is more defined in terms of sound quality. So very strange here. Like I said, this top speaker is not really doing that much. So like, watch this. So you know, it's there, but you know, the speaker on the V40 is just going to be better. It's almost kind of like the G7, which is still undefeated. If you think this speaker is loud, then the G7 speaker is just like crazy loud. So Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the cameras on each of these phones. So you have a 16 megapixel standard on the V35 and a 16 megapixel ultra wide. It shoots in 4K, which is nice. You have an 8 megapixel selfie camera, shoots in 1080p. On the V40, you have a triple camera setup, 12 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel telephoto. So you're getting better portrait photos on the V40 as opposed to the V35, and you have that ultra wide 16 megapixels. This one you could shoot 4K 30 or 60 FPS on the V40, and you have the dual camera setup on the front, 8 megapixel standard with a 5 megapixel ultra wide. On the V50, you have the same triple camera setup. It's a 12 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel telephoto lens with 2x optical zoom, a 16 megapixel ultra wide, again 4K 30 or 60 FPS, the same dual camera setup, 8 megapixel standard, and a 5 megapixel front facing camera. So as far as image quality on all of these phones, you'll see a big jump from the V35 to the V40 and V50. But if I was gonna say which phone has the overall just better, it would be slightly the V50. And when I say slightly, I mean slightly, just in terms of just detail and just color accuracy. It's just going to be a little bit better, and overall just when you're pointing and shooting, just snapping, you will just get a better shot on the V50, I noticed. But it's like barely, it's like neck and neck. Now you can tell a difference with this, but with these two it's really neck and neck. And you got the 5G on the V50 as well, something that I didn't forgot to mention, but it is lighting up right here. But I haven't used 5G because where I live at, it does not, we don't have it down here. So yeah, so alright, so check out this photo I took of the Funko Pop, and as you can see, not a huge difference, but as you can see, just more clear on the V40 and V50, and the color accuracy is just a little bit better, but it looks weird through my camera, so you're not going to be seeing like what it actually looks like. My camera is like making everything look weird. But yeah, so the V40 and V50 are definitely a better step up in the camera department, and also the 4K, having that 60 frames per second, is very nice as well on the V40 and V50. So overall, just slightly better cameras, and you can take advantage of the group selfie camera or the wide camera on the front, which I think is cool. But as you can see, the V35 has really good image quality. Sometimes I prefer the colors on the V35, but it really depends sometimes. But I'm usually getting a better shot on these two devices. So both excellent cameras, and you don't have the telephoto lens on the V35 as well. You just have the ultra wide, so you know you won't be able to get those really crispy portrait photos. So you know, overall cameras are going to be just better on the V40 and V50. Now let's go ahead and talk about battery life. So on the V35, you have a 3,300 milliamp battery, 18 watt fast charging, 10 watt wireless charging. The V40, you have a 3,300 milliamp battery, 18 watt fast charging, and 10 watt wireless charging. And on the V50, you have a 4,000 milliamp battery, so the biggest battery, 18 watt fast charging, and 10 watt wireless charging. So the battery life would go V50, V35, and then the V40. So on the V40, you usually can squeeze out about 7 hours and 30 minutes of screen on time. I believe I have battery drain tests on all these, or these two. With the V35, the screen on time is actually really good because you have around 8 hours of screen on time, if not 8 hours and 30 minutes. So might do a drain test on that just to make sure, but definitely getting better battery life than the V40, and this is still doing better than both of these phones just because it has the bigger battery here. I'm not sure why they kept the same small battery in the V40. You know, they made the display bigger, so you know it would take up more battery, but I'm not sure why they did that. And this has, since it has a smaller, you know, 6-inch display, then you know it's not going to suck up as much battery. At least that's what I'm thinking. But yeah, so battery life, that is the order it goes. So you can get through a day of battery life on all of these phones, just to be real. So if you're a heavy gamer, then the V50 is going to be the way to go. So that is pretty much it, guys. Thanks for watching. Hopefully I was able to help. If you want to see more in-depth videos on these phones, be sure to go ahead and check out the channel for that, and I will catch you guys in the next one.